Okay, daf mem hey Bava Kamah. We're going to begin on daf mem daled amud beis by the last Mishnah on the page. So the Mishnah is sheishu yatzuli sokil. If you have an ox that's it's leaving Beis Din to be stoned for killing a person, they made a psak on this stone on this share, and he deserves to be stoned. So this ox is leaving the courthouse, leaving Beis Din to get stoned. And what happened? And the owners then was makdash. They consecrated it to the Beis Hamikdash. Halacha is einei mukdash is not considered hektish. In other words, the hektish does not take effect. Why? Since the deriving benefit from the ox is usher, and the ox is therefore worthless. So you can't derive any benefit from the ox. Shvata, if one shefted it, so sorry usher. If somebody shefted it after there was a psak that this shit has to be stoned, his flesh is forbidden to be eaten, and it's also to derive benefit from it. But if the owner was makdash before its verdict, so there was, let's say, he was makdash before the verdict that it has to be stoned. Now, lafli is mukdash; it's considered hektish. And if he shechted it before before there was a psak that has to be stoned, Allah sorry mutter, his flesh is permitted. Now, next din, if the owner of the ox gave the ox either to a Shem Rechinam or to a borrower or a Shemer Sucker, a Shemer that you pay, or to a renter, and now it caused damage while it's in their custody, so the halacha is nichnas utachas abaylim, they enter to the responsibility in place of the owner. They become now basically the responsibility of the owner. And therefore, if it was a muad, Mishal Nezek Shalom. So the owner, they have to pay Nezek Shalom. But tam, and if it's a tam, Mishal Chatzi Nezek, it pays half the damage. That's the din. So the first din of the Mishnah is about a shir shiyatzu l'sokol. If there was a psak already, so it doesn't matter what you do, it's over. You have no effect. But if before it was yatzu l'sokol, then if your magdash is mukdash from shrata, psarim mutter, then on the side then, that if you gave it a shemer chinam or sheil, that's a sucker, or a shemer sucker, or a secher, so they'd be taking out full responsibility of either if it's a tam or a nezek. Tana ban over there that Rabbi said, sher shehimis, the regard to an ox that killed a person. So like this, if the owner, so if the owner sold it before, you have like this, you have an ox that killed a person. Now, if the owner sold it before there was a psak din, machar, it's considered legally sold, and it belongs to the purchaser for all purposes. If he was makdash if he was makdash, then it's considered hektish, and all the halachas of hektish apply to it. Shchotai, if he shechted it, sorry mutter, then the basar is mutter. If zidei shemer the base bylov, if the shemer who has to safeguard and return it to its owner's house before the psak, then most is considered to be returned, and the owner has no further claim against the shemer. So nachavon. So again, a share that died. So before a share that killed. So before it actually there was a nigmar din that it deserves to get killed. If it was sold, so it's a good sell. If it was makdash, it's a good hektish. Now, if the shemer now returned to its owner before the psak, so now it's considered psak, it's considered return, and the owner now cannot have any further claims against the shemer. However, if once the verdict has been issued, so if the owner sells it, it's not considered sold. Why? Since the ox is no longer his. If you makdash and mukdash, it's not considered hektish. If you shafted it, sorry, also to me it's forbidden. In the shemer of the base bylov, if the shemer returns the owner to the owner's house, any moser is not considered to have been returned. Why? Since the ox is considered to have been killed. Kiva says, even once the psak has been issued, and zir is shemer the bylov. if the shemer returned to its owner, muhzar, it's considered to have been returned. So the Gemara says, shall we say that they disagree about this? Then Abba Sabri, the Chachamim hold that Eidim B'Sarna Arishachol Lefanecha. The Chachamim hold that with regards to an item, that which is also to the right benefit, one does not say that which is yours is yours. In other words, once the deposited item was usher, the shemer cannot return it to its owner, claiming that since he's not been physically damaged, he has been fulfilled his obligation to return it, and therefore the owner can't have any claim of it yet. Yaakov holds no. Yaakov holds that one does say with regards to items from which it's also to derive benefit, that which is yours is before you. Omar Rabbi says the everyone once, according to everyone, one says that with regards to item for which is also to derive benefit, you could say that which is before you. If the subject was a machlekes, and let them make a machlekes with regards to chametz the Pesach, which is a more common case of item which is also to derive benefits. Rather, they disagree with regards to matters of issuing a psak for an ox, not in presence. The Rabbanon Savri, the Chum hold ain't game dinish asher b'fanav. Chum hold that the verdict of an ox can be issued only in the presence. Therefore, the shemer is not putter by returning it after the psak. The Amar Lei, as the owner, could say to him, if you return the ox to me before the verdict, have a ma'arakne leila agma. I would have smuggled it into the marsh, and the Beis would not have been able to sentence it to stoning. Now you have let the ox be seized by the Beis Din, with whom I cannot engage in litigation. Yaakov holds, the verdict of an ox can be issued in its absence, because he can say to him, save, migmar have a gormale dinner. You can say to the owner, in response to the claim, ultimately you would have issued a psak anyway, so I did not cause your ox to be stoned by not returning it to you before the psak. What's the reason of the chachamim that the ox verdict can be issued only in the presence? As he says, the pasuk says, "Asher yisrael gambal of yumas." The ox shall be stoned, and its owner also shall be put to death. Just as the death of the owner, a person for killing another person, so is the death of an ox killing a person. Just as the owner is sentenced to death only in his presence, an ox is sentenced to death only in his presence. And Yaakov holds that the owner of the ox cannot be compared, as granted the owner must be present when the verdict is issued, as people are present to claim the defense. As people are able to present claims in their defense. But as for an ox, is capable of presenting claims, makes no difference whether or not the verdict is issued in his presence. And the Mishnah says, if the ox owner gave it to a shemer chinam or a shayel, so the halacha is that they enter the responsibility and a chayav to place in place of the owner. There are four people who enter the responsibility and liabilities in place of the owner, and they are shemer chinam, shayel, place of summer, secher, unpaid shemer and a borrower, a paid shemer and a renter. Hargutamin, if the ox killed people, wants possession of these people, they're dogins. Hargutamin, if the ox killed people, while possession of these people, if the ox are tam at the time that they are killed, at the time they killed, so the halacha is nadogin, they get killed. But ptunim not kefer, are part different kefer. Muadin, if they are a muad, nadogin, they are killed. Musham is a kefer, and they pay for it. Tell them to make sure the bailav, and regardless if they're a tam or a muad, the shemer is chayiv to return the value of the ox to its owner, put the shemer chinam, except for a shemer chinam. Amri, the Chacham said, what are the circumstances which the shemer are chayiv, the exception of the shemer chinam? If he safeguarded the ox appropriately, but the ox killed the person anyway, everybody is pater. And if they did not watch it properly, then the shemer chinam is chayiv, then the shemer chinam should also be chayiv. So Amri, the Chacham said, what are they doing over here? Did a tarti shmira pusa, where the shemer provided a shmira pusa, but a tarti shmira, but they did not provide a superior safeguarding. Now, shemer chinam, in the case of a shemer chinam, also Shminasa. The case of the Shemer Chinam has fulfilled his safeguarding duties, since he did not receive anything in exchange for the level of safeguard is sufficient. Hanach, but in regards to the other ones, like also Shminasa, they have not fulfilled the required level of guarding. Now, so the Amri, the Chum said, Keman, according to the Uza Brisa, Ikar Meir, if it's according to the Meir Damar, it says Shemer, the Shemer, Keshemer Chinam Dami, Secher is Keshemer Chinam Dami, then a renter is considered like a Shemer Chinam. So then, the Chutz Shemer Chinam Asecher should say, except for Shemer Chinam and a Secher. And if it's according to the Yehuda Damar, who says Shemer Sachar, he says Sachar Dami, who says that a renter is considered like a Shemer Sachar, then Nisti, let him teach Chutz Shemer Chinam. The exception of a Shemer Chinam, Mekulam b'Mu'adam Turan in Kefer. And in fact states, but it should also say in regards to the case of the Shemer, which is a Mu'ad, all of them except with the case of Kefer. As the Rabbi says in the next Mishnah that a Mu'ad ox requires only a Shmira Pkusa. Therefore, the Brisa of the Kher it's not in accordance with the opinion of either time. This is according to Rabbi Lazar. He says that the ox has no sufficient shmira at all other than shafting it with a knife. In other words, there's no degree of safeguarding that exempts a ox's owner, or let's say a shamer, from damage. Well, he was saying so like Rabbi Yehuda. However, with regards to a renter, the price also like Rabbi Yehuda. Amar shamer seicher kanesis sakadam. He says that a renter is considered like a shamer sak. Now, Abai says like the mayor. Ramis is according to the like the mayor. And it is Lava Avuza refers to the two opinions and taught. How does a renter pay? In other words, what degree of responsibility? And Mayor Emer Kashem Sachar, and the other says the Shemer Chinam. Rabbi Lazar says, Master Shade the Shemer Chinam. If the owner gave his ox to a Shemer Chinam, he's like, if the ox damaged, so then Chayiv, he's Chayiv. Who's Zak? If it was injured, then he's Pater. Amri, the Chacham said, hey, Chidam, what are those cases? Either Kabbalah Shemer and Zakim, if Rabbi Lazar was referring to a case of Shemer who accepted responsibility upon himself for guarding it from causing damage, I feel it was a name of the Chayiv, even if the ox was injured, it should be Chayiv. And if it was referring to a shamer who did not accept responsibility for being shamer, that is an out butter. Even if it causes damage, he should be exempt from payment. So Rabbi says, really, it was referring to a case where he accepted responsibility upon himself regarding it from causing damage. But what it did with over here, case where the shamer recognized that the ox was a goring ox. And in a normal case of things, in a normal case of things is that the shemer accepted upon himself responsibility for safeguarding it, so not go and injure others. So he accepted it. But if he did not enter his mind that the other ox would come and injure, therefore he did not accept responsibility for safeguarding against such a ma'isa. Next mission, if the ox, this owner tied it with reins to a fence or locked the gate before in all the fun of Garo, he locked it properly. Yotzev is it, but nevertheless, the ox emerged and caused damage. So whether the ox is a tam or a mud is chayiv, since this is not considered sufficient precaution to prevent damage. So these are the words of the mayor. This says tam chayiv. If it was a tam, the owner is chayiv, even if he safeguarded it appropriately, since the Torah is not limited regarding safeguarding of a tam. But if the ox was a muad, pater, he'd be pater from paying kaifer, because the Torah says, the Torah says, and the owner is not secured. The Shomer was that. At the end of the day, he did guard it. If Lazar says, he has no sufficient shmida at all other than shafting it with a knife. There is no degree of safeguarding that exempts the ox's owner from liability. What's the reason of Remeir? Savar he holds Stam Shvarin, because he holds that ordinary oxen, Lab Bethesda Shimer Kaimi, are not presumed to be other safeguarding. And Vam Rachmana, and the Torah says, Tom Nechayev, Torah says that a Tom is Chayev, and he boiled Shmina Pkusa. Now, He holds that ordinary oxen are not presumed to be under safeguarding. In other words, the owners do not ordinarily safeguard them. The Torah stated in the Torah, they won't be chayv even for damage caused by a tam oxen as much as it requires at least a reduced level of safeguarding, at least with the reins. Now, and then the Torah goes back and says, in regards to a mu'ed, and the owner has not secured it, which is mashal that it's not sufficient to provide it only with reduced level of safeguarding. In the Bailei Shmina Mula, which is mashal, you need to have a superior safeguarding. The Yalf Negila Latam, and a mayor derives the requirement with regard to a tam from a Zer Shava in regards to Negicha, Negicha Mu'ed. So in both cases, basically a Shmina Mula is required, otherwise the owner is chayiv. And therefore, since there's no Shmina Mula here, he's chayiv. Rabbi Yehuda holds though. Stam Shvadi Mecheska Shimur Kaimi. Ordinary oxen are presumed to be under some reduced level of safeguarding. Therefore, the Torah states, nevertheless, that even for damage caused by a tam, an ox will pay. You buy the Shmina Mula, so therefore you need to have a Shmina Mula. Although Rahman then there says, the Navalei Shmina Mula, which you need a Shmina Mula, and therefore have a Ruba after Ruba. If any Ruba after Ruba, so you have a Riba after Riba, and whenever you have a Riba after Riba, it's always to be mine. To be that goes to Shmina Mula. So the Torah excludes the requirement of a Shmina Mula with regards to a Sher Tam, and therefore Shmina Mula Pusa is sufficient to exempt the owner from liability. If you're going to say that through the Gzer Shava, between them goring stated with regards to Tam, and goring with regards to Mu'ed, Amid Rahman Leishman is that the Torah restricted this halacha that the owner has not secured it, referring to the it, and not the other. But isn't this phrase necessary for the negative lav statement? If the owner does not provide Shmina Mula, is chayiv. So more answers. And if this is not Rahman Yishmar, other Torah right that the owner has not secured. My Leishman, no, what does it mean Leishman? He's not secured it. Which means to the share, which is a mu'ed, and not to the share tam. You learned in a brayso Yaakov says, in both cases, whether it's a tam or a mu'ed, and there's a shvin of kusa, it's pater, it's pater. My time, but what's the reason? Some of the Rabbi Yehuda, he holds in the course of Rabbi Yehuda, Amr mu'ed b'shvin of kusa sagli. He holds that with regards to the kusa, shvin of kusa is enough. He holds the gifel tam, the gifel mu'ed, and he learns from the gifel tam, the gifel mu'ed. Only the forewarned element of the ox exempt. But the liability for its element of tam remains in this place. Therefore, the owner did not provide superior safeguarding for the owner's ox. He still had to pay at least half the damage as it were a shirt tam. Rav says, more the Karen Yamin. If the ox is a moor with regards to going with his right horn, and a moor the Karen smell, it's not considered a moor with regards to the horn with the left horn. Amri, they said, Alib the man, who is Rav's statement according to? He Alib the man, if it's according to the mayor, he says he had a shmina mula by both. He Alib the made you the Meyer, you can't smell. Why did he state specifically to the left horn? I feel minami. Even with regard to the right horn itself, he speaks out tambus. If it has an element of tambus, he speaks out mothers, and it also has a element of mu'ed. So matches Amri, they said this. The Bamis is according to the Yehuda, for the Bava, and he's not hold with the opinion of Bava that the ox Satam element remains. Well, this is what he means to say. The Mishkach Satam. You find an element both of a Satam and a Mu'ed, and the same ox, specifically in a case like this, where an ox is a Mu'ed with regard to one horn, but not with regard to the other. But if an ox entirely is a mu'ed, and mishkach has to pay tzat tam is klal, don't find an element of tam with regards to that at all. If it's a mu'ed with regards to boring with either horn, its status as tam is completely revoked. Rabbi Lezer says, Ein lo yishmina l'sakin. He says, the ox has no sufficient safeguarding at all. My time is Rabbi Lezer, says, and the owner is not securing it, meaning that once it's a mu'ed, the owner no longer has any sufficient manner of safeguarding the animal, the owner is responsible for all damages. The Torah says, if a man now shall open a pit, or a man shall dig a pit and not cover it, also means that once a pit has been dug, the owner is no longer telling me he can't cover it properly. We know the thing is, and if he covered the pit appropriately and the ox or donkey fell into it, then he died, he's potter. So what does that mean? So Rabbi says, this is the reason of Rabbi Lazar. They tell you that a Bryce of Nasa, name of Nasa says, where do we know that a person should not raise a vicious dog in his house, or that one may not set up an unstable ladder in his house? Like it says, you should not bring blood into your house, which means that one may not allow a hazardous situation from in his house. Similarly, a person should not keep a ox, which is a mu'ed, in his possessions. This is why Rabbi Lezer rules that no level of shmir is sufficient. The ox should be shechted, so that will not cause any damage. Had nalach, shesh nogach arba v'chamisha, and the Mitzvah Shem tomorrow will start at 50.